From the newsrooms of the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, this is Please Explain. I'm Samantha Salinger-Morris. It's Thursday, June 15. It was a criminal trial unlike any other in recent memory. Former Liberal Party staffer Brittany Higgins alleged that she was raped by colleague Bruce Lehrmann inside Parliament House. Lehrmann strongly denied the allegation and pleaded not guilty after he was charged. But since that trial was abandoned last year due to juror misconduct, the matter has become even more intensely political. Politicians have been lobbing accusations at each other over who knew what about the allegation and when. Today, political columnist Jacqueline Maley on what happens when a rape trial becomes entangled in the world of politics. So, Jacqueline, this week, the Finance Minister, Katy Gallagher, fronted the Senate to talk about something quite unexpected, the rape allegation that Brittany Higgins made against Bruce Lehrmann. So how did Katy Gallagher find herself in a position where she needs to defend what she knew about the rape allegation and when to coalition party members? I mean, where does this particular story start?
Yeah, well, it goes back to these text messages. So as we know, Bruce Lehrmann was on trial for the alleged rape of Brittany Higgins last year. And in amongst the discovery and the sort of evidence that was briefed out to the defence from the police were a whole lot of text messages. Basically, Brittany Higgins had to hand over her telephone when she made the complaint. And that was a sort of matter of contention between her and the police because she didn't really want to do that. And she also, I think, at one point handed over an iCloud password. So pretty much all of the material that was on her phone has gone to the police. The police then put together a brief of evidence and they hand it to the defence. So none of this we actually saw in the trial. There's obviously very strict laws about the admissibility of evidence within a criminal trial. It's a sort of hugely strict process, how you let evidence into a criminal trial. None of this was relevant to that trial. None of it was relevant to the central allegation of rape. It's all just stuff that has landed with the police and the defence and now has found its way into the media. So in amongst this sort of, huge cache of text messages that's been leaked, there's an exchange between Brittany Higgins and her then partner David Shiraz. David Shiraz was an ex-journalist in the ACT who'd had a professional relationship with Katy Gallagher, who is a politician from the ACT. So he knew her, and in amongst all these text messages is an exchange which refers to Katy Gallagher, and David Shiraz says that he's basically let her know about the allegations and that she's broadly sympathetic. After the allegations were made public, there's an exchange which is now 2 years old between Linda Reynolds, the senator in whose office this allegedly occurred, and Katy Gallagher, where Katy Gallagher rejects any suggestion that she knew about it or that any Labor politician knew about the allegation before it was made public, and the text messages would seem to contradict that version of events, basically.
Right. It does seem odd that there's such a focus on what Katy Gallagher knew or didn't when there have long been questions about other ministers who would have known about the allegation long before Gallagher ever did. So what's going on there?
I think it's pure politics. This was an allegation and an affair that was hugely damning and hugely damaging to the Morrison government. You could say that was one of the main factors or one of the pivotal factors that led them to lose government because it tied in so strongly with what people came to perceive as a woman problem that the government had. It was hugely damaging. It was hugely distracting. And I think now, on a political level, the Liberal opposition, which obviously is in a very weakened position, the government's been in a very strong position since they won government, and they're seeing a political opportunity to use it to damage Labor, which is not to say that if a politician has misled Parliament, then that's obviously something that should be thoroughly examined. But I've got to say I don't see what the end game is here, what we are sort of trying to prove, or what the sort of ultimate implication of Katy Gallagher having knowledge beforehand of this, given that she didn't do anything with that knowledge. And also, I would say more generally, we've gotten so far from what this issue was originally about, which is an allegation which has destroyed the lives really of both people who are involved in it, has led to a lot of destruction on all sides. And I think you've got to say that the leaking of those text messages in the media and the absolute exposure of that is a very, very bad message to send about the process of justice in this country for alleged victims of sexual assault.
Agreed. And I guess to that point, what is your view about where the text messages actually came from? Do you have any insight into that and about the way that they have subsequently been treated by the media and politicians alike?
I think it's quite horrifying. I think it's ironic that people who have criticised women like Brittany Higgins for taking their allegations to the media instead of going through the criminal justice system, which is Brittany Higgins has copped a lot of criticism over that she was more interested in going into the media than she was actually pursuing it through the courts. I think that's upside down. I think you've got to see that Me Too allegations that are brought to the media, that has arisen because complainants in sexual assault matters do not get a good deal, by and large, in the criminal justice system. And if the criminal justice system has failed them, there is no reason why they would have any particular faith in it. And I think given what we've seen with how the criminal justice system has, the process has meant that all of her private information has been leaked. Well, her view that the criminal justice system was not going to serve her, it turns out to be quite rational, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And what do you think will be the impact of this case on victims of sexual violence? Do you think that the massive attention that the case has received will put people off from coming forward?
Yes, I do. We should say at this point that Bruce Lemon has denied all of the allegations. No criminal findings have ever been made against him. The trial was aborted because of juror misconduct, and he's entitled to the presumption of innocence, and his reputation has been ruined. It'll be very difficult for him to ever carry on with a normal life as well. Having said that, I would say more generally, we know, and we've had a lot of focus in recent years on how difficult it is for complainants to move through the criminal justice system, how rare it is for them to complain, how rare it is for police to then prosecute, and then how rare it is for a conviction to be secured, right? Compared to other crimes, particularly violent crimes. One of the great focuses, and we've had some movement and reform within the justice system on this, is how complainants are treated. And unlike any other alleged crime, there is an outsized and often very vicious focus on the victim in sexual assault matters that you don't get with any other crime. And it's kind of upside down. And that has been something that's borne out, I think, anecdotally in a lot of the cases that you see in the media. But it's certainly there's been a lot of research done on that. And I think we talk about victim blaming a lot and the kinds of cross-examination avenues that barristers will pursue against complainants about what they were wearing, their sexual history, how drunk they were, that kind of thing. There's now a lot of better rules around that stuff, but it's still pretty patchy. And I think if you were looking on this as a complainant or someone who was about to move through the system, I think it would be very, very hard to feel secure that your privacy was going to be protected, that your integrity was going to be protected, and that you were going to be secure in the process, no matter what the outcome was. I don't see how you could come to any other rational conclusion if you're looking on to this whole affair as a complainant. It's obviously a special case because it's so public, and, Brittany Higgins gave away her anonymity. She did that voluntarily. She has worked closely with the media along with her partner, David Shiraz. So there's been a level of cooperation there, and people will have views about that. But I think that no one deserves to be exposed and to have their privacy shredded in this way.
Yeah, it's horrific to sort of be an onlooker
to
all of it. And back to something you said before, with regards to how this rape allegation, it really sparked a reckoning, I guess, about the treatment of women in Parliament. And it has turned into, like you've said, this really grubby game of political football. So yeah, I guess what sort of insights do you have into that, or how do you reflect on that? That's what it's sort of turned into?
I guess to take a step back, I think the Me Too movement more generally represented a huge shift in terms of reckoning with sexual assault, which we know is endemic in the community. And I think that shift, particularly around notions of justice, which underpin our system and our democracy, like the presumption of innocence, the right to a fair trial, the burden of proof beyond reasonable doubt in criminal matters, all of those things came under question. And in particular, the sort of reputation of men who are accused of this stuff was at risk, right, if women go to the media instead of going through the criminal justice system. And that's hugely threatening. It's hugely threatening because it's a big shift, it's a big change. It means that some people are forced to give up rights, if you will, at the expense of other people. And I think that a lot of men in particular feel very threatened by that. And I think what we're seeing is sort of part of a backlash against that. That's very big picture. More specifically in this matter, I just think it's just really descended into a grubby political thing, which, to be honest, I think most people have probably lost track of because it's quite complex and yucky, and also just reflects badly on everyone in Parliament.
And I guess as a final question, what do you expect to happen next? Because obviously it's still an ongoing matter in the sense that there are defamation cases still underway, as I understand it. So what do you think? Where will this go now?
Yeah, it's not going away. There's 2 defamation suits that Bruce Lehrmann is bringing against the ABC and Channel 10. There is the Sofronoff inquiry, which is being held in Canberra under the auspices of the ACT government, which is looking into the prosecution and the investigation of the alleged crime. And that's been very damaging, in particular to the Crown prosecutor, Jane Drumgold, who prosecuted the matter against Bruce Lehrmann. And then we have even Senator Andrew Bragg, Liberal Senator, calling for an investigation into the leaks of the text messages because he says that that is, a very bad indictment on the sort of criminal justice process. We have, I think the AFP is supposed to be investigating the leaks of those text messages. And also I think you've had Linda Reynolds, former Coalition Centre, threatening to sue Tanya Plibersek, Labor minister, who made some comments about the matter on television. So, I mean, it's great for the legal profession, not so good for Parliament, not so good for the criminal justice system or anyone involved, I would say.
Thanks, Jacqueline, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Today's episode of Please Explain was produced by Hannah Mills-Turbot and Julia Carcatzel, with technical assistance from David McMillan. Our executive producer is Ruby Schwartz. Please Explain is a production of The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. If you enjoy the show and want more of our journalism, subscribe to our newspapers today. It's the best way to support what we do. Search The Age or smh.com.au/subscribe. I'm Samantha Selinger Morris. This is Please Explain. Thanks for listening.